Hey,
Okay.
I'm not used to being on with this few people. More used to being lost in the crowd.
Oh, really? So there's usually a whole bunch of people. This is my first time even seeing any of these take place. I haven't watched.
Yeah, that's usually late at night. It's a set group that, just a bunch of us
Okay,
gather and discuss current events and other stuff. Sometimes it just goes in any direction, movies, whatever.
cool.
Sometimes it's cool. Sometimes it's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll
And
go.
like that.
That's your wallet and some Gatorade.
This live stream brought to you by Gatorade and my editing software.
Yeah, I posted it on Facebook too.
So that's not a good profile.
The
Yes,
live stream, the YouTube link, not the Hangouts link.
All right. So we are here with Suffolk County Green Party Chair Pauline Salotti.
hello.
Hello. Just before we get into everything, just briefly introduce yourself, say whatever you want to say about yourself uh, and what's going on.
About what we're going to talk about, or just about myself
Well, if
in
you
general?
want to introduce yourself and how you got involved in politics.
Oh, okay. So I'm originally from Brazil. That's where the strange accent sometimes you're going to be hearing here come from. I came to the States 20 years ago to go to school for audio recording, uh, self-taught in English, and also came to learn English and a whole bunch of other things happened. Got married, made an American baby who is now 14 years old. 2 years ago, I became an American citizen, and a few months later, I was running for office in the Green Party, running for town council. And throughout my my life here in the States, I have been waking up, I guess, slowly to the reality around me. And as a mother, I got together with a whole bunch of moms. It used to be called the Natural Mothering Forum. It was just mothers trying to figure out a way of raising their kids naturally on Long Island. And so I started to learn about a whole bunch of things that the FDA is not going to tell us that is not safe for us to eat, and a whole bunch of other things that started learning about renewable energy. And what was that? A week before we invaded Iraq, I put a bumper sticker in my car: renewable energy is homeland security. And that was a long time ago. So I've been paying attention to a lot of things, world events mostly, and then came across the Green Party and realized that we can affect our local politics a lot more so than just shouting out to what happens in world politics.
Right.
And I became involved. So yes, I ran for office, and that was a great learning experience. I realized that if we approach this party with a real strategy, can actually get some people out there to represent. We're not taking money from corporations, because if a lot of people don't know, the Green Party, we don't accept corporate money, only individual donations. So that puts us in a position to eventually, when we get into office, there are a lot of elected Greens throughout the country, but we're actually able to represent the people, put the people, the planet, and peace before profits, like they say.
One thing I wanted to ask you, because I think that one of the tools that is used sometimes to keep people from affecting change is just the language, the contractual language. It, it's tiring a lot of times. You read through it and you don't want to read anymore, and it taxes my brain. And I have spoken English for 49 years. For someone who is self-taught, uh, taught yourself English, what would you tell people they're trying to get into learning how to read contracts and how to really get involved and learn more about the process?
Wow, that's really interesting. Nobody has ever asked me that question. I'd say to just learn a language, period.
Right.
What gave me that jump start was really after 6 months of being here, living with Brazilians, to actually start living with who weren't even American, but people who spoke English, who English was not their first language. But as far as reading contracts, I don't know. That's a really, I'm not sure if I can give an answer right now, but it's just poking around and being interested. And I started using this function on just double click on a word and right click, double click to select, right click to look it up. And that just cut the whole, it used to be like flipping the pages in the dictionary and what is it? And that lookup feature just simplified my life a lot.
Just a little, very, very quick thing about me is that I actually have my first degree in English Lit from Virginia Tech, and I have a master's degree in education. And I love language. And I love studying language and studying how language is used. And I'm fascinated by how contractual language is used, and I enjoy deciphering it and getting through it.
Now that I'm sorry, you just got me thinking that one thing that could have made it easier for me to teach myself that contractual language was that it's something that happens when you start learning a different language, that you look at those words that before they meant nothing to you. They a lot of times you're going to have to put 2 or 3 or 4 of them in the same sentence and just say it, and they actually mean something to other people. And it's that kind of an attitude that you're just like, I just looked up that word, and I mean, it's a legit word. I'm just going to start using it.
There's somebody
and know what I'm saying. So.
Somebody I'd like to mention, Jennifer Briney. She does a podcast called Congressional Dish. She just got interested in the bills, and she started just pouring over bills. And she is a fantastic resource if you want to check her out. I think it's just an interesting thing. But anyway, in regards to what I originally talked to you about, the Constitutional Convention, or the possibility of a constitutional convention. If you could just very briefly explain what the New York State Constitutional Convention is.
Okay, so
how it works.
Right. So in summary, right, I just a little my historical context in this. I didn't know about any of this until a couple months ago. I started seeing some bumper stickers, probably all seeing them already. Vote no, vote no, vote no. And I'm like chasing people down the street, like chasing the cars. Vote no on what? What are you saying? Constitutional Convention. Okay, vote no. Interesting. I didn't know dang it, and I was so surprised that I hadn't heard about this once in a generation opportunity for New Yorkers to change our constitution. So as you know, if you turn to it, found I host a radio program on WUSB in Stony Brook, 90.1 FM, if people are here on Long Island, every other Wednesday. So there's another DJ who also we came across, posts on Facebook, and thought, oh, you're interested in that too? Yes. What is this all about? What's going on? We want to just find out about it. We don't want somebody to just tell me, vote no, and okay, vote no. That's just so not how my mind works. So started doing some research. Somebody pointed out a video put together by the League of Women Voters, who, who a group that was formed 100 years ago, fighting for the women's right to vote. And so I decided to draw from their wisdom, because they've been around for a long time, right? And that video was it was just wonderful. It really talked to me like I was a grown-up, like an adult, really telling me the background of what's going on. And so I was on the fence until that moment, and then I said, oh, my goodness, we need to do this. Really need to do this. So what is it? The Constitutional Convention. So every 20 years, New Yorkers get a chance. So the New York State Constitution sets a statewide referendum on whether or not to convene a constitutional convention. So what is a constitution? Going right back to that. Is it a contract between the people and the government? It sets the boundaries, sets the rights, so a lot of people don't realize that all 50 states have their own constitution. And in New York here, we're in a very unique position, as in we don't have any process that lets people gather enough signatures and puts proposals on for as referendums for everybody to go vote on.
Right.
The only way that we get a chance, we the people of New York City get a chance to do anything about our Constitution, is every 20 years we're asked the question, would you like to have a convention? So how does that work? If now on November 7th, hopefully everybody who's watching this is going to get out there and vote. Make sure you flip the damn ballot. So when you flip it, there are going to be 3 questions there, and one of them is going to be about whether or not to have this convention. If we say no, if the entire New York State, majority says no, nothing else happens, we go back to sleep, and in 20 years from now, we're going to go, remember that thing? Yeah, nothing happened in between then and now. I guess we should have done that. Anyway, so if we're still around. If we vote yes, if we decide to have a convention, the timeline is next year, a bunch of people are going to start campaigning to become delegates. We're going to be voting on 204 delegates. So we have 63 state Senate districts. We're going to pick 3 delegates from each district, and then 15 are going to be elected at large, statewide. So total of 204 delegates. And these people can be anybody. They can be sitting legislators, judges, mayors, farmers, business people, union members. And in fact, all of these people that are just named attorneys have been part of previous conventions. Now, the last convention that we actually passed any amendments through was in 1938. That was a long time ago. And great things happen in a convention. Always, we we gain rights. We don't lose them. We acquire more rights in every convention. Now, there was another convention in 1967, but it was this strange, and I don't have all the details on that, but it was, there was something there that we can also learn from history, and that one is the only one that they ended up putting some really good proposals there, except for they bundled them all in one package that
Right.
people could just vote up or down. So yes, the timeline. Next year they campaign. Next general elections, 2018, we get to elect these people. Then on April 2nd of 2019, they go in session. And for around 6 weeks, the delegates get together and they draft some proposals so then on that, the earliest that can happen is 2019. We would vote on those proposals, yes or no. So let's see. I guess that's pretty much the background on that I could say, like the actual nuts and bolts of it. Yeah, am I missing anything as far as just how the whole thing works?
Not as far as just the very basics. My question from that is that if we have a constitutional convention, and let's say proposals are made, would it be bundled like you said happened in 1967, or could individual proposals be made and voted on separately?
Right. So the answer is that I wouldn't be able to give you that answer. We can only hope that we'll learn from history, because that was the only time that they got away with doing this, and I think it happened just as all the proposals were drafted. Everything was great. I mean, it looked like, I don't have them in front of me, but there were some great things proposed. Right. And at the end of it, somebody managed to bundle it all up. I think what I remember was that they elected to be, I think it was the leader of the convention, or, when the delegates are in session, they can pretty much decide on how to go about the process and make a lot of those rules themselves. Right. And even decide to take longer and say, no, you guys are going to vote on this in 2020. We're not ready, or so that things like that could happen. But I guess that was a very long answer to say, I don't really know. Nobody really knows. It'd be up to the delegates. But when they elected that leader, I think it was, never finished. He was, I guess, somebody that should have been there. I don't know, a sitting legislator, or like maybe already like this. It's kind of like we're already electing to lead the delegates. We'll get like the state Senate majority. We'll get Flanagan there, who's already been sitting on a lot of those bills. Yeah, about the nuts and bolts. That's one very common misconception, and one thing that's being used to fearmonger people into saying no is that, we already have a way of dealing with that. We already have a way of amending our Constitution. I see there are amendments there. So there are two ways of doing this, basically only two ways. One way is through the Constitutional Convention. The other way is what we have now, what we've had since 1938, because in 67 nothing passed, is that just like the federal government, it has to go through the Assembly or House of Representatives, so it has to go through both houses, so both our state Senate, our state Assembly, and then be signed by the governor. So we say that New York is ruled by the three men in the room. You know, the Speaker of the Assembly and the State Senate Majority Leader, because they set the agenda. If a bill is great and has already passed the Assembly, like single payer Medicare for all, it's a S4840. It has already passed the Assembly. That was a different number in the Assembly, I don't remember. 3 years in a row, but it doesn't go to the Senate floor for a vote because the Senate Majority Leader Flanagan doesn't want it to. He's not going to put it there for a vote. There's some campaigns that people have been fighting to just to have be considered in a vote, and we just can't even have it be voted on because these people are blocking it.
Well, one of the main concerns, and I think the only concern for me really, is the cost of the convention itself, which we have discussed, and somebody inflated the number to $305 million, but it's really comes out to about $47 million, I believe I read. So talk a little bit about that, and how the number was inflated. Someone took the 1967 number and it was already set for, adjusted for our year, and he adjusted it a second time.
That is correct. So it was actually Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan that put that figure to 350 million. And there are other people projecting as high as 500 million. That is blatantly false. There's the estimated cost of the last convention in 1967 was from 7 million to 15 million.
Right.
15. And then there was new polls, political scientists who adjusted the figures to today's numbers, and it brought it up to 47 million. And then there was a reporter that took that number and mistakenly thought that was the actual cost of 1967, and then he adjusted again. And that's the number that they're throwing around right now. I just want to tell you, Dave, that I don't have a microphone on my computer,
right,
and my headset just warned me that I'm running low on a battery. So if for any reason all of a sudden you can't hear me, I'm going to try to just a heads up.
Okay, I'll talk fast. What was the next thing? Well, let's get into.
I'm sorry, just to piggyback on that point. Yeah, 50 million. That's a lot of money. Yeah. I wouldn't want to just throw that around. Hey, I can, But if we think about the amount of money that's actually a figure I haven't been able to come across. I did a little research to no success, but how much does it cost for New York State to just run elections, counting the primaries, and basically just having elections every year? I believe that's a fraction of that figure. So being that the incumbents, these sitting legislators are going to statistically be reelected 98% of the time, I think that's the waste of money. That's the waste of money right there, because we're going there. We're even bothering to go to vote, and we're pretending that we have an election because incumbents just go right back in, no matter what. And there's no term limit, so they're just there.
Well,
and they don't have to impress us at all. They don't have to campaign. I mean, these people next year, the delegates, it's a complete new ball game, because they're not going to be seeking re-election. They're not going to have to impress donors, party bosses, or anything. Once that body has fulfilled its purpose, it will be dissolved. Those delegates are not going to be, seeking re-election. So, yeah.
My point with bringing up the cost, and you were bringing it up as well, is, even though that is, I think the figure was 47 million, but yeah, about $50 million. When if effective legislation or if effective amendments are put out to amend our election process, isn't it worth it to make it more cost effective and reallocate funds that could have been spent or that would be spent towards elections and just basically wasted towards elections, and reallocate that money to something else?
Oh yeah, there's so much money that can be saved just by some of the proposals that can be gone through. Another example is so we have 9 district courts. The judicial system is a huge motivator to, as far as saving on resources here. There are a lot of different courts, and there's something that was passed a long time ago through a convention that just took care of a redundancy that needed to be done, like some bureaucratic thing. They had to print a paper 3 times, and just by them passing that and saying that it only needed to be printed once, it already saved, cumulatively millions of dollars.
Right.
So that's just one small example. But just streamlining the courts would save a lot of resources. The thing with the election reform, I mean, so many people of all party lines, of no parties, especially of no parties, right? Independents that would love to see some election reform. There's a lot of money that can be saved there too, just by passing some of these, some proposed amendments that just like automatic voter registration.
Yep.
Like you're over 18, you can vote.
Right. And
you have to, right?
I will post the actual New York State Constitution. I had forgotten to do that, but I will post that in the links, or in the comments after this is done. But in Article 2 of the New York State Constitution, it mentions basically that elections in New York State are bipartisan, completely shutting out third parties. It should be multi-partisan. Now, I'm really, before your mic cuts out, I want to get to the heart of the argument and get into pensions. And I don't know how much you know about the Taylor Law. I read it pretty extensively as I could last night, and it's pretty limiting of what you can do. It basically, when you take away the ability for people to strike, and I don't want police officers to strike or firemen to strike. I'm not saying that, but when you take away the right to strike, or taking power away from unions, and it actually mentions too that there is basically a board, a board that an arbitration board, and again, 3 men in the room. They love those 3 men in the room. And these guys they're getting paid a decent wage and all of that. And I'm not saying, completely get rid of that, but what I'm saying is, when you are saying that pensions could be attacked, pensions have already been attacked somewhat, and a constitutional convention, if people are that concerned about it, they could address that at the Constitutional Convention. And if first off, the detrimental pension attacks couldn't be put in anyway because of the contract clause in the national Constitution. But even if it was, it goes to a public vote once things are proposed. So other than, it's just a big waste of money because people are going to put in a bunch of bad things, other than that, James, awesome. How are you, brother?
Aloha.
Hey,
Good, buddy.
This
Hi.
is James.
Hey there. So, yeah, so there are a few things to that. Why I'm not super familiar with the Taylor law itself,
Right.
but my understanding is that collective bargaining itself on the part of the public sector employees is not guaranteed by the Constitution. Rather, it's protected only by this Taylor law. That's a legislative enactment that could be undone by a simple majority of votes. You know, just like the other way.
Right.
Now, the pensions, like you said, have been already kind of
Chipped away at.
Yep, and they're phasing it off. It's not entirely protected. What is protected though is whatever people have now. What could change is only for new employees, because what happens is that the public service employees have their employment, the moment they get hired, it's part of a contractual right which is protected by the federal Constitution. And that only if New York State was to go bankrupt or something, they wouldn't be able to pay those pensions anymore, according to the Constitution. So they need to fulfill that no matter what. And I mean, unions are, for some reason, I'm not sure.
Mike.
There's some kind of mic thing there.
Yeah, her mic went out.
I'm out. Big time.
Her mic's battery. She warned us that might happen.
Are we televising or videoing in the
Yes,
day?
this is being
strange to me.
This is being.
Yeah, look, I know I look disgusting in the daytime. I just look like a weird person.
Yeah, with your shirt on, it's bizarre.
I know, right? At night I have my shirt off, and then the day I have a shirt on. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
This is strange to me too. Last night I woke up just as your show ended.
Yeah, I get home right when the show ends. And it's like pretty much like clockwork. It's like, oh, Dave's here. Click. Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't here earlier. When you post something with all the hosts and Twitter,
I need to do the time.
Discombobulated.
I need to do the times too. I mean, it's Eastern Standard Time for me. I always forget about that. So if you know.
All right, man. All right. It's all good in the hood, my brother.
And I told Snork it's in an hour, and he's like, "Oh, what? It's at 5?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, sure, why not?"
He's on scientific engineering time. That's a whole other dimension. So, how long have you guys been on?
We've been on since about 2:10, so we've been on for about a half hour.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay, yeah. I have a question about Hangouts here.
Sure.
When here's the chat, does that work like our chat on Ring Central, where if you post something, it's only seen by the people in the chat?
If you post something in Hangouts, it's only seen by me, or only seen by the people in Hangouts. Yes.
Okay, so just you and James and Pauline.
Nobody can see it on the outside now.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, if you go on the YouTube live stream, as the live stream is happening, you can, if you're really, into it, look at that chat. But here you can't do that.
Yeah, I have both on. So I just wonder because I've been trying to contact James and I have no way to contact him. I have his Twitter, but
here you go. He's right here.
So yeah, so I can.
We're having halftime right now.
Yeah, this is our timeout until Pauline's mic is ready. So it charges.
As you were saying, sorry we interrupted and had a technical difficulty. Can she hear us? Can you hear her?
Yeah.
But I can't hear her. Hangouts is kind of weird. Let's see if I can. All right. So now I got you. There's nothing I can do. Whoever hosts, just make sure she's not muted and she's good. Hey, Dave, could you please put what she's? I her Pauline, her name and all that.
Pauline Salotti.
Pauline is she running for?
She is
something?
not running currently. She actually did run a couple of years ago in 2015, but she is the Suffolk County Party, Green Party chair. She basically runs the Suffolk County Green Party right now.
Freaking awesome. Awesome sauce.
I am going to take a bathroom break. I'll be right back.
Okay.
So let's see here.
Oh,
I can hear. I can hear you.
Oh,
No, go to the bathroom.
I'll be right
We're
back.
good. Suffolk is Suffox or Aux? Suffolk? I'm just gonna wing it.
I'm trying to do here it over using my phone.
Yeah, it's
But
working.
I don't know
can hear
if you can. I can't really hear you guys. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're fine.
Good. Okay.
All right.
I only need to figure out a way of having this on the speakerphone. Can I do it? Does anybody be able to tell me?
And she's technically.
It's
Are you
working.
able to, right?
That's awesome.
This is
I'm
what
just
being
doing
an
it through my phone,
audio-visual
but
expert gets you. I would just be freaking out. Just be like, I wouldn't know. She's got it. You got it. It's good.
Hey, is Suffolk Suffoux or O?
No, it's Suffolk. Suffolk. Suffolk County.
What state?
Basically, there are 3 counties in New York. There's Suffolk
Yeah.
County, there's Nassau County, and then there's Queens County.
Okay. Roger that.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, I'm here, but I'm trying to put the speakerphone on because otherwise I'd have to have you guys in my. Anyway, but I think we can do this.
Okay. And this is Snork.
See, I'm not really being able to hear you.
No?
Just a moment.
One moment, please.
I don't know how to put it
Let's all
on.
sing a song. If we sing a
Speakerphone.
song, then she'll know if we're talking or not.
I can barely hear you guys, but I don't know. Huh?
The leader of the club that's made for you and me.
They're just losing their mind now.
All right, so maybe, I don't know, maybe let's give this a try.
Okay. So where were we after
Ugh.
Mouse Club?
I don't remember.
the issue of the pensions.
So we're talking about the pensions, right?
Yes.
Let me just figure out even where I was as far as that goes. Right. So there's another thing that's been told people, part of the fear mongering, whose health benefits. These are not protected at all in a state constitution. Actually, that's something that could happen if we had a convention. We could secure health care for so many people. You know, it's really strange that some groups are afraid of this convention happening only because of their individual interest, and it could be something so minor that doesn't affect most people, but for some reason they're just trying to throw a wrench there into so much goodness that could happen. Because New York State is pretty ahead of the curve, right, as far as a lot of things go. And
ahead of California.
Well, yeah, except for California, it's pretty ahead of the curve. Except for they have a way of the people introducing referendums for so then everybody can vote on their ideas. And in New York State, we don't have that. The only way that we the people can make a change is to host a convention. And there's a study here. Just wanted to read a little piece here. Yeah, the notion. Conventions in New York State have added, not taken away rights. Nearly every right, individual or collective, in New York State Constitution is the product of a constitutional convention. The notion that the values and ideals that have defined New York, including its commitment to organized labor and its desire to compensate those who have served the public good, will somehow fall prey to a rogue convention, does not comport with our constitutional tradition. The statistics, there's statistics to prove this. Even common sense, it wouldn't make any sense. A more likely scenario would be that a convention would strengthen the collective bargaining rights of public employees by constitutionalizing them, would augment income tax exemptions of all retirees, public and private alike, and would increase the state's obligation to constitutionally provide for its public servants. So who knows why there's a lot. I mean, to me, just sounds like the legislators are very scared. I mean, not just to me. I've been reading that, people saying they're just very scared because there's that stronghold that they have, and a handful of the teachers and public service employees of New York State's unions who have that political influence right now. They're afraid of messing with that. Definitely the sitting legislators. I mean, that's just obvious for people to use the argument to say, oh, just legislators are going to get right back in there and nothing is going to change. Historically, first of all, that's not what has happened. We always put some rights there, except for that 1967, like I said, at the end, just the final stretch, they bundled all the proposals into one thing and they voted either up or down. But because it only happened once, we can be sure that we're going to be looking out for that. I forgot where I was going with this, but to say that, legislators, it's in their interest of hosting a constitution is insane. Like, it's really insane. No, it's everything that they do not want. They've been very comfortable with their own way of taking care of our Constitution for us. We're just, they would love nothing more for us to just fall asleep for another 20 years and just leave it up to them to put something on the agenda or not. So the unions, it really, it hurts me, because I love the concept of union. It's great to have the collective bargaining, but when, a few individuals all the way up the ladder, that's not, people with their locals, with their, county associations or anything, but it's way up there that there's corruption, and maybe a few people get some more even more political power out of this. But it'd be really weird, I guess, for legislators to be scaring people out of doing something that so blatantly would undermine their way of their power, their way of taking care of those issues for us. So it looks like they're using the unions to do that. I really hate to say that, because there are a lot of wonderful people in unions, and they don't really know any better. They're being lied to also, and being fed this propaganda. I mean, you do a simple search on the convention, and you just find all these fear-mongering videos, not even telling you what it's all about. Oh, it's every 20 years. It's, it's, we elect complete, we can elect from a huge pool of a diverse pool of jobs, that people can have. A lot of attorneys can be elected, and I would say that makes a lot of sense. At first you go like, oh, I don't know, but constitutional attorneys, they eat that stuff for breakfast. They really, they're very familiar with the language and are passionate about New York State Constitution, and would love nothing more than to streamline a bunch of those things. I mean, it's 40, 42, 47 pages long, I mean, all in fine print. It's full of policies. There's a lot of old language. I mean, you can find how the Erie Canal was funded, for example. You can find a lot of weird things in there that, but not much about rights that we can say, okay, that's a right that's constitutionalized. It's just a bunch of old policies, and it'd be a great way for attorneys. I would say, personal opinion also, as in the past, there have been some sitting legislators. I believe that a handful of them in the middle of these 204 delegates would make sense too, because they're there every day and they know how things have been getting done or have not been getting done. They'd be able to, I would say, let's pick out of the good ones. Let's pick some of these guys who have been trying to push for single payer for 20 years now. Some people have been trying to introduce that legislation that never sees a vote. So let's get some of these folks in there and saying, thank goodness, here we are. Now we